I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rechak Kodash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rakaya from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson. And I don't have a title for this lesson as of right now, but I did want to get into a little bit of this video through the Spirit, which is kind of brought back to my attention as I was searching for different articles. And this video is from a whistleblower named David Goldberg, all right, which in this video he gets into some so-called classified documents that he uncovered and leaked going into Project Pogo and Zephyr, which I did a lesson on this video about 5 or 6 years ago, through the Spirit. And it kind of resurfaced. And it's a Spirit because a lot of what he gets into in this video is a lot of what we're seeing today, and it could be linked to prophecy. So without further ado, we're going to play a few minutes of this video. We're going to grab a couple of precepts. Lord wants us at a fountain to elect. Now, I did want to start off here in Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus 18 and verse 26. It says, "From the morning until the evening, the time is changed, and all things are soon done before the Lord." Right now, we're entering into a new season. The scriptures speak about in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, about how there's a time and season for everything under the sun. All right, and right now we're entering heavily into the season of war. All right, into the season of loss, bloodshed. Okay, we're entering heavy into the season of the Lord's judgment. Okay, and from the morning until the evening, the time has changed. All right, the times have changed. Okay, like brothers were mentioning last week during camp, we're living in historic times right now. Record-breaking, times. We're living in record-breaking times right now. All right. It says, from morning until evening, the time has changed. All right. The Lord spoke about in Matthew, the 24th chapter, of the different signs, that would be present in the earth before the Lord made his return, such as earthquakes in diverse places, the uproars of many people, all right, the love of many waxing cold, amongst many other things. And as we look out into the world and we link the different things that are taking place globally to prophecy, all right, we see that these things are happening at a rate and at a frequency that was never like this in times past. All right, not even when you go back 3 or 5 years ago. Okay, things are steadily increasing, all right, concerning the judgments in the planet Earth. All right, it's concerning the deterioration of America and the planet. Things are escalating. All right. So it says again, from the morning until the evening, the time is changed and all things are soon done before the Lord. A wise man will fear in everything, and in the day of sinning he will beware of his offense. But a fool will not observe time. All right. And the Lord really is only given, that wisdom to the remnant here in these latter days to beware of their offenses, to repent, and to seek the Lord 10 times more. That spirit has only been returned unto the remnant of the nation of Israel. And for the rest of these people, they won't observe the time. Even though the times are being made plain before them, they still will not acknowledge the time, which is according to prophecy. All right, the scriptures speak about or foretold of 2/3 of the nation of Israel being cut off because of their disobedience, even though the miracle was being performed right before their eyes. 1/3 of the nation of Israel was prophesied to be delivered and to understand the will and the word of the Lord in the latter days. And when you look at 1 versus 2/3, that's a huge discrepancy, man. That's a huge difference. Talking about 66.6% against 33.3%. That's a huge discrepancy. There's a lot more people who are going to be destroyed than there are that's going to repent. And you have a lot of fools who just refuse to observe the times, even though the times are being laid out plainly before them. And you got whistleblowers like this and many others, who are now coming out here in these latter days, really laying everything out on the table that the prophets have been speaking about for years. You have these different whistleblowers concerning the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. You have these different whistleblowers concerning the elites of Esau, Edom. These different whistleblowers concerning the economy, the failing economy of America, which is Babylon the Great according to the scriptures. All right, you have a lot of whistleblowers. The whistleblowers concerning the atrocities that were done to Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians by the hand of the so-called white man, which is Esau, Edom, according to the Bible. You have a lot of so-called whistleblowers of the nation of Edom, especially, who are now coming out here in these latter days, because shameful spewing is now in their glory. Like it says in the book of Job. Okay. Or it's like Habakkuk. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. All right, and the foreskin of Esau Edom is being uncovered. All right, whereas at one point in time, he had the nations drunken, and he was able to look at their nakedness, which nakedness just goes into vulnerability, And now these nations, the tables have turned, and now Esau is the vulnerable one. He's the one whose foreskin is being uncovered. It says, the cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. All right, and everything that the so-called white man took glory in, who took pride in, is now becoming a shame unto him. All right, and shameful spewing is now upon his glory, which this is yet another example. Now, I'm going to start off at the beginning. We're going to skip through. If you want to watch the whole video for yourself, this is the page, Prepare for a Change. The whole video is 26 minutes, but we're not going to play the whole 26-minute clip. We're just going to get the points. So without further ado, let's get into it. Bear with me. They're going to make me skip through these ads before I can get to the actual video again. So just bear with me.
Diabetic, did you know you don't need to take the A1C test because your urine can reveal what that test never will? Did you?
Coming in a 1-pack, a 2-pack, and a 4-pack, this changes the outlet game. So I'm missing a screw that goes right in the middle. Just
Hello everyone, this is David Goldberg again. This is probably going to be one of my most important videos that I've done yet, and ciphering and learning from these videos. People waking up. What we've received. So, we'll get into this. The crux of it, I want to just introduce you right away. What is it all about?
This is what the documents reveal.
This is it. This is what the documents reveal. There are too many people waking up. There are too many Americans, more and more of them, that are suspicious of Israel.
And we see that rising suspicion continuing here in 2026. And I remember doing a video on this, I believe about 5 or 6 years ago, for sure. I believe about 5 or 6 years ago. So, this is going on during the whole pandemic. I believe this video came out. And the first time I seen it, it was on a site called Best Gore. Jake, meditating terror. But that was the first time I seen it. So, you fast forward here to 2026, so-called 2026. All right. And we see this suspicion continuing to rise until the point that we're at now where, there's a lot of scrutiny upon those small hats and what they've been doing in the planet Earth and the crimes that they've committed against humanity. There's a great awakening, that's taking place essentially throughout the whole world, which has chiefly sprouted from this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding from Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And we read about that in Daniel's, the 12th chapter, 12 and 4, it says, "But thou, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." All right, so we're living in the age of information, knowledge, where a lot of information and knowledge that wasn't necessarily accessible in times past is now accessible at everyone's fingertips. And now we have, different news outlets, alternative news outlets that put out live news, real time news. So a lot of the war crimes that are taking place, around, that eastern region, a lot of the atrocities that are being committed by these different governments are able to be seen in real time. All right. So there's really no propaganda or any enchantments that they can really put upon the people, because everything is right before their face. Death, bloodshed, wrongdoing, corrupt governments. All of that is right before the people's face, which alongside that, the prophets have been very heavily saturating YouTube with the understanding of what's going on and what's taking place geopolitically. So with all that taking place, knowledge has increased, and now people are starting to see and call out really the devil on the planet Earth, which is the so-called white man, chiefly the elites of the so-called white man. A lot of people are waking up, a lot of people are waking up, all right, to what's taking place in the earth.
More and more Americans aware of Zionism. This has been around for decades and decades. You go back to the 50s, 60s, there's a lot of literature about Zionism, about Judaism. It's not unusual, but the difference is today more and more people are waking up to it. It's been a real tipping point where you always had maybe about 0.5% of the population that was aware of Zionism, that did not like Jews and whatnot, but they were never part of the mainstream. They were always dismissed as conspiracy theorists. They had no influence. So they were not really a threat. But that has changed. And you know that has changed. Anyone paying attention knows that has changed. We have seen a big change in comment sections on YouTube, many people making references to Zionism. It has become a part of the nomenclature through the influence of 8chan, 4chan, many websites, and ultimately many YouTube channels that have been speaking the truth very aggressively for many years, but it has really gotten attention lately. It is somewhat of a cumulative effect, a snowball effect, where more and more people start to wake up to the truth and the facts, and it just expands. And people become more accepting of it. And they start to say, okay, it's okay for me to look at the information. I'm not an anti-Semite for looking at it. And it really starts to click for people. So this has been a big change in the recent past few years. What happened is that Israel, its agents, its propagandists, have been paying very close attention to this over the past few years. They know this is happening. They are very concerned about it. We are talking about 0.5% of Americans who have some idea of Zionism, and they're against it, and they understand.
I believe, just speculating through the spirit, that this is a huge reason why the Israeli forces have sought to integrate with the United States military forces. Alongside, what the prophecy says in Jeremiah, the 51st chapter, about the least of the flock drawing them out. But alongside that, since, there's been a great awakening, support for the small hats isn't like it used to be in times past. All right, so in order to really seize or take back that, support, they forcibly integrating themselves amongst Babylon the Great, forcing, these allied forces, because support has drastically dropped because of knowledge increasing in the earth.
That number, according to these documents, is now about, I saw two numbers. They said 15%, and another one said 7%, but that is a very large number of Americans that have woken up to what's going on with Israel and Zionism and the Israeli lobby and the influence. They're unafraid to hate Israel. That number is very high, and it is them very concerned. This is much of what the classified documents talk about, but we'll get into that more. I wanted to set it up for you so you actually understand what this is really about. What I was given from the White House Insider. The main part that you really need to know, though, is they have a plan for all of this. So I'm going to talk about that now. There is discussion within these documents years ago to ban the YouTube channels, to shut it down, all of that. But they changed course. They made a decision to do something completely different. And they decided, instead of censoring everything, to fund and promote gatekeeper channels, shill channels, to simply gather and collect all the open-minded people who are looking at the issue.
Different alternative news outlets, which, a lot of these alternative news outlets are set up, like he's getting into. They're paid off, especially a lot of the opposition that we see against the Hebrew Israelites in the form of, people like Vocab Malone and so on and so forth. All right, these are all paid opposition, to really try to build up a case like the Elder Yashwamba gets into all the time, to build really a case against, those who are preaching truth aggressively on the internet, especially by way of YouTube, on the highways and byways as well. They're really paid opposition to get and collect data on those who are against the small hats, and the agenda that they're pushing here in these latter days. And that's why we see, a lot of these data centers, popping up. Companies like Palantir, they're openly telling you that they're going to collect data, on your person, what you've been watching, your search history, what you're into, your interests, what you spend your free time looking at. All of that data is going to be collected and put in, and people are going to be put into categories. Once again, this is the accuser of our brethren. All right. And what the accuser likes to do is put people into categories. All right. So that he can persecute.
And they did shut down some of the legitimate channels, and that has actually happened. If you're following some of that, you are aware that there have been channels that have been shut down. Almost completely eliminated. Some of those channels were not a part of the original gatekeeper channels. They have no connection. They are truth-telling channels. Some of those they've eliminated that they felt were a threat or that might be calling out the gatekeeper channels. So, I'm just looking through some of the documents here and seeing what I want to talk about next. One really interesting aspect of all this is that the gatekeeper channels and the shill channels, typically these would be disinfo channels. Disinfo channels like Alex Jones.
Diabetic, did you know you do not need to take the A1C test because your urine can reveal what that exam...
Boy, used to like to put commercials on everything, boy. God damn.
Operation, and the purpose of this is to put out truthful channels to attract people to them. They call it tag, track, and ID. It is a term used throughout the documents.
You know, and that's why they're
TTID.
pushing very heavily nowadays. The doing away of anonymity on the internet concerning your identification. You know, people have been allowed to have some form of anonymity, you know, scrolling the internet, you know, and now those times are coming to an end. You know, everybody is being forced to have a digital ID, you know, a digital, you know, presence or form of identification, you know, it pushing it, you know, in order to have an online presence, in order to participate in the internet, you know, and so on and so forth.
It's something you want to remember. They have access to YouTube. They do know who you are. So this is discussed a lot in the documents. I'm just looking through it right now. And there are two projects, and it's very important to listen to this. Project Pogo is one of them, and Project Zypher. I will spell that one. ZYPHR. Project Pogo and Project Zypher are the two projects that the classified documents are referring to, and each has a different role. Project Pogo is about the YouTube gatekeepers, how they are all agents. They are all paid to put out truthful information so that they can tag, track, and ID the people that are watching the videos and giving them likes and giving them comments. They're tracking all of it. Project Zypher is a different project, and that's what I'll talk about in a bit. That is the second stage here. That is coming up. And that is the extermination. They're going to exterminate these people, whether it is tag them for anti-Semitic speech, charge them with crimes, eliminate them completely, and this is where I'll talk about in the documents where they talk
for this. You know, are we not seeing the setup for this?
About guillotines, viral attacks, targeted. How they're going to eliminate these people without too much suspicion, without too many people noticing. But here's the problem. As I read the documents, I can see I have documents from 4 years ago, I have documents from 2 years ago, and then I have documents from 3 months ago. So there's a progression in the timeline as the projects change. And Project Zypher has changed. In the beginning, they were talking a lot about, okay, we are going to infect these people with a virus that imitates the flu virus. They're going to eliminate them in various ways that would not be suspicious. In the documents I have now from 3 months ago, they are saying the amount of people they have to eliminate is too large. It is too many. We are talking about millions of Americans. And this is where we see their plans are changing. And they are going to initiate something that is devastating and that is extremely frightening. And based on what I can see in the documents, we're talking about power outages along with a purge. They're going to come in, they're going to take you out of your home, and they're going to put you into a military vehicle or whatever, a van, and drive you away and place you into a camp. It is a very, very big operation that they're planning. It is millions of Americans. They will do it under the cover of night, under the cover of blackness, during one of these planned blackouts. The blackouts are based on documents. I'm just looking at it right now. They have a 3-day blackout. They have a nationwide blackout that lasts 2 days, and a lot of localized blackouts. So it is a whole series of blackouts that they're going to do. And of course it will be blamed on all kinds of things. They might blame it on Iran. I have seen that mentioned in the documents.
It's beautiful, how this is all came together, because he said, they're going to possibly blame these blackouts on Iran, and it just so happens that the Lord has had that war and those tensions escalate throughout these past couple of years to where this has now become, a possible future, a possible reality. Brothers were speaking about last, Friday before camp about a couple of articles they seen getting into how a lot of people are speculating that false flag is going to arise here in Babylon that is going to put the blame on Iran to justify drawing the troops out further into that land. And not only can that be used as a tactic to draw the American military forces closer to the Valley of Yahweh Shaphat, according to prophecy in Joel, the 2nd and the 3rd chapter. All right. Not only can it be used as a catalyst to forward that prophecy, but it can also be used as a catalyst to forward the prophecy of martial law, all right, and sedition. All right, because if they blame one of those false, the blackouts on Iran, people are going to believe it. And under the cover of night, they're going to use that to bring persecution unto the Lord's saints, possibly. There's a lot of things that could possibly happen. All it's going to take is just one major event to get everything cracking. That's really all it's going to take. Is one major event to get the rest of these end time prophecies cracking concerning the mark of the beast, Jacob's trouble, and World War III. That's all we have left, brothers. That's it. It's only going to take one major event to get all of this cracking, all right, so that we can get out of here. And we're edging closer and closer. The time is short. Romans the 13th chapter says how our salvation is nearer than when we believe. And we understand that before salvation comes tribulation. So with that being said, our tribulation is nearer than when we believe. All right, the Lord has these tensions escalating for a reason, at this pace for a reason. All right, things are getting ready to get a whole lot more serious. And we're getting ready to transition into a new season of this truth, a new phase of this truth. All right, we're going from faith to faith. All right, and you can feel it, through the Spirit. You can feel it, how the Lord is steadily increasing and fortifying brothers' spirits and minds. The demons are getting heavier, the attacks are getting more frequent. All right, because the Lord is sharpening brothers, preparing brothers for the time that's going to hit, which for the majority of these people is going to be sudden. But for those who are watching, it's going to be, it's expected at this point. It's a matter of when, not if. It's a matter of when. And through the Spirit, man, the Lord is preparing us to overcome, to conquer through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Lord willing, wear that number. All right, but brothers, always keep in mind, man, the Lord is preparing us to conquer. All right, the scriptures speak about how we're more than conquerors. All right, through him that loved us. Okay, the Lord has not given us the spirit of fear, pursuant to 2 Timothy. All right, but of courage and of love. Okay, at the end of the day, we go through these things to understand the times. Okay, to understand where we stand in the spectrum of prophecy, not to fear. All right, the only thing that we fear is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, because he's in control of the whole situation. But I don't want to play the rest of this video. It's a long video, man, as you can see. We're only 12 minutes into a 26-minute video. So if you want to play the rest of that video, which I believe you should, once again, this is the channel. But I'm going to leave off here through the Spirit. Lord, and this is edifying unto you elect. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakwadash, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Shalom.